On 10 October 2015 at 10:04 local time in Ankara, the capital city of Turkey, 2 bombs were detonated outside Ankara Central railway station. As of October 16, the death toll stands at 102 and more than 400 people were injured. The bombs appear to target a Labour, Peace and Democracy rally organized by the Confederation of Progressive Trade Unions of Turkey, the Union of Chambers of Turkish Engineers and Architects, the People's Democratic Party, the Turkish Medical Association and the Confederation of Public Workers Unions. The rally was held to protest against the growing conflict between the Turkish armed forces and the separatist Kurdistan Workers' Party. The incident occurred 21 days before the scheduled 1 November general election. The attack was the deadliest of its kind in Turkey's modern history. The governing Justice and Development Party, the main opposition Republican People's Party and the opposition Nationalist Movement Party condemned the attack and called it an attempt to cause division within Turkey. CHP and MHP leaders heavily criticized the government for the security failure, whereas HDP directly blamed the AKP government for the bombings. Various political parties ended up cancelling their election campaigns while 3 days of national mourning were declared by the Prime Minister, Ahmet Davutoglu. No organization has yet claimed responsibility for the attack. The Ankara Attorney General stated that they were investigating the possibility of 2 cases of suicide bombings. On October 19, one of the 2 suicide bombers was officially identified as the younger brother of the perpetrator of the Suruk bombing. Both brothers have suspected links to the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant and the ISIL-affiliated Oku Missile Group. Background: following a suicide bombing in Suruk that killed 33 people on 20 July 2015, the Turkish armed forces have been fighting both the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant and a renewed PKK rebellion of the Kurdistan Workers' Party. The resumption of the conflict with the PKK resulted in an end to the solution process. A series of peace negotiations between the government and the PKK alongside a ceasefire in place since 2012, with airstrikes initially targeting both the PKK and ISIL. Later military operations began focusing explicitly on PKK positions in northern Iraq, prompting a surge of counter-PKK-related violence in the mainly Kurdish southeast of Turkey. By 7 October, the surge in violence since July had led to the deaths of 141 soldiers and 1,740 militants, leading to several pro-government commentators to claim that the PKK was close to defeat. However, the large number of soldiers killed also contributed to civil unrest in other parts of the country, with attacks by Turkish nationalists taking place against the People's Democratic Party headquarters. Many politicians and commentators alleged that the country was close to civil war. Political situation: the increase in violence came shortly after the governing Justice and Development Party lost its majority in parliament after 13 years of government alone in the June 2015 election. When the attacks took place, the preceding AKP government led by Ahmet Davutoglu remained in power until a new coalition government could be formed, with an interim election government also headed by Davutoglu taking office on 28 August 2015 after President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called for a new election. Critics have accused the AKP of trying to regain nationalist voters back from the Nationalist Movement Party by purposely ending the solution process and also trying to reduce turnout in the HDP electoral strongholds in the southeast by creating unrest there. Concern had been raised about whether an election could be securely conducted amid the violence in the region. Events: perceived targets: the explosions occurred shortly before a Labour, Peace and Democracy rally supported by the Confederation of Progressive Trade Unions of Turkey, the Union of Chambers of Turkish Engineers and Architects, the Turkish Medical Association and the Confederation of Public Workers Unions was due to take place. The rally was scheduled in CES Square. The railway's overpass bridge was the gathering area. It was reported that many attendants that were present in preparation for the rally were supporters of the People's Democratic Party, with the rally area containing numerous HDP, Labour Party and Socialist Youth Association's Federation flags. Bombings. The first bomb exploded at around 10:04 local time while rally participants were singing an anthem commemorating the Bloody Sunday incident of 1969. The second bomb exploded a few seconds later. It was also observed that the bombings were in close proximity of the National Intelligence Organization headquarters. Shortly after the bombing, security forces cleared the area in case of a third and fourth bomb. On the day of the blasts, the initial death toll was reported as 86, along with 186 wounded. Next day, the total number of deaths was announced as 97. According to the Prime Minister's statement on October 14, 99 people were killed in total. The number increased in the following days, as people in the hospitals succumbed to their wounds, to 100 and to 102. The Turkish Medical Association made independent claims, reporting that 97 died and over 400 people had been injured, which they later updated to 105 and 106. HDP also independently claimed that the number of deaths was 128. However, after a few days they retracted the statement, and apologized for the misleading claim. Immediate response. Witnesses at the scene told the media that the police began using tear gas shortly after the bombs went off while stopping ambulances from getting through. Angry people tried to attack police cars after the blast, with the HDP claiming that the police attacked people carrying the injured to safety. Shortly after the bombings, the Minister of Health Mehmet Muezzenglu, the Minister of the Interior Selami Altanok, and the Minister of Justice Kenan İpek visited the scene to carry out investigations. However, they were met by protesters who chanted anti-AKP slogans and were forced to leave the scene less than 1 minute after arriving. The Ankara Attorney General announced that they were investigating the possibility of 2 suicide bombers, while the Turkish State Railways stated that there would be delays to train services passing through the Ankara Central railway station. Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu cancelled all of his prior engagements and stated that he would hold his election campaign for 3 days. He met with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who also cancelled his engagements in Istanbul following the incident. The Prime Minister later held a security summit, which was attended by Deputy Prime Ministers Yalçın Aktagan, Numan Kurtulmuş, and Tugral Turks, along with National Intelligence Organization Under-Secretary Hakan Fidan, Interior Minister Selami Altanok, Justice Minister Kenan İpek, the Governor of Ankara Mehmet Kılıçdaroğlu, the General Director of Security Selahattin Lekesiz, and several other senior civil servants working for the Prime Ministry and the Ministry of Health. The Radio and Television Supreme Council announced a temporary ban on all press coverage of the bombings following a request by the Prime Ministry. Twitter and Facebook slowed down after the attack due to heavy use. Perpetrators. Initial speculation. The Ankara Attorney General stated that they were investigating the possibility of twin suicide bombings. It was observed that an anonymous Twitter account had claimed that an explosion could take place in Ankara just 1 day before the attack actually happened. Source needs translation. The lack of any immediate statement from any known non-state perpetrator taking responsibility for the attack resulted in speculation over the possible perpetrators. Nationalist Movement Party leader Devlet Bahçeli stated that the attack bore a resemblance to the explosion in Suruç in July, raising debate on whether the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant could have been responsible. Source needs translation. It was reported that the type of bomb used bore strong resemblance to the materials used in the Suruç bombing. signaling a potential connection between the two incidents. Source needs translation. The People's Democratic Party openly blamed the Turkish state and the government for conducting the attack, accusing the government of collaborating with non-state actors and taking insufficient action to tackle their presence. The HDP has claimed that the governing Justice and Development Party was guilty of being murderers with blood on their hands, and also being the number one threat to Turkey's peace and security. The HDP's accusation was met with strong criticism by the AKP government. Veysel Eroglu, the Minister of Forest and Water Management, made a heavily criticized statement in Ankara, implying that the HDP had purposely organized the attack against their own supporters to raise public sympathy for their party. Although Eroglu did not name the HDP or the PKK specifically, he referred to the Diyarbakir HDP rally bombing in June as being an attempt to raise support for the HDP, just so that they can pass the 10% election threshold. Source needs translation. Investigations. Initially, the government suggested the perpetrators could be any of the following anti-government groups: Islamic State, Daesh, Kurdistan Workers' Party, Revolutionary People's Liberation Party Front, Marxist-Leninist Communist Party. A day after the bombing, Davutoglu suggested that early investigations pointed to the involvement of IS. However, opposition political parties did not accept this attribution. Yunus Emre Alagoth, an ethnic Kurd from Adiyaman and the younger brother of Abdurrahman Alagoth, the perpetrator of the Saruk bombing, was suspected by the government to be one of the suicide bombers. On October 14, media reports alleged that Yunus and a second suspect, Omer Deniz Dunder, both of whom are believed to have links to ISIL, were identified using DNA from the scene of the blast. On October 19, one of the two suicide bombers was officially identified as Yunus Emre Alagoth.